Forged among stars.
As per usual, I made some more mistakes. I forgot to do an end session move. You can see it here on the screen. I'm going to give myself one momentum, and I am going to check for develop relationship or a milestone real quick. Okay. I don't know if I have any developed relationships. Let's look for a milestone. Help Lodestar recover. I don't know. It seems a little cheap to mark that one just yet. It does seem like I have to do something else before I can mark any more progress on that bar. Now I have 10 experience points, which is amazing. This game is very difficult, so I may spend some of those. But let's look here first and kind of remember where we are. So Hawking has just met these two spacers. He just saved the one spacer's life, who is called Hellhound, because the other spacer, Mole, had been attacked by a zombie and mutated and corrupted. I subtracted 1 health from Hawking. I think that was a little too easy. So I'm going to subtract another one. So he is down to 1 health, because what he did is he blocked Mole as she was becoming this corrupted being, and she was already dead because they had shot her, but she was lunging towards Hellhound, and Hawking interposed himself, knocked her to the ground, and that blow injured him. Otherwise, Hellhound would have been injured. We have a couple important things that have to be done. Hawking needs to retrieve the brain-like being from the command center here, because that is the object or device, they were calling it, that Lodestar wanted him to retrieve and that they couldn't. But he also has to go down below the ship somewhere and retrieve a mineral sample for Ogre in exchange for Scout's freedom. He already swore a vow to do that. It's right here. So we have to do those two things. But he has met this person, Hellhound, and I'm going to try to make a connection with Hellhound. Because if I do, I'll get some benefits, like +1s and such. So let's see about how to do that. So that is a move, and it is make a connection. We'll just take a look at it. So if you're listening to this on Spotify, you may want to head over to YouTube and check out video, because I have a lot of this on screen. If you're listening on YouTube, just pop over. Your boss won't notice, okay? I mean, maybe. Don't get in trouble. But anyway, listen to the show, but don't get in trouble. All right, so we're going to make a connection with this person. This is Hawking's strong suit. He leads with his heart. I hope I don't get myself into more trouble. A strong hit. Nice. All right, so I'm going to give them a roll and a rank, and whenever they assist me, I get to add 1, and if I get a hit, I get a +1 on momentum. So that is going to be great. So I will create that connection, and I will probably edit it out, but you just go over here, and you can start typing in details. So I'll get that connection made. Okay, I have entered Hellhound here. I'm going to make her dangerous because why not? She's a spacer. I just met her. Make it dangerous. Then the descriptors here, I may roll for another descriptor just to have fun. Oh, I could roll for another first look, a disposition. Let me see if we can just do something fun. Uncanny, disposition, hostile, no. Roll pilgrim, no. Oh, a goal, seize power. No, she already had forge and alliance. Oh, reveal aspect, maybe that's it. Sorry, I'm rolling the wrong ones. I'm going to roll reveal aspect. Oppressed, let me try again. Critical, I could see that, maybe. Rebellious, hard-hearted, afflicted, reclusive, nah. A lot of these aren't working. Critical could work. She could be kind of a snark master, which would be kind of fun. She's always a little like, that doesn't work, or something. Or where do you think of that? Stuff like that. Okay, so we got her created. Now this is going to help me. Now Hawking is very happy about this, that he has met somebody who wants to get out of the vessel, because he needs some help, because this brain-like creature is in the cylinder here. And he really didn't have any expertise on how to move this creature, but now he has an engineer. And guys, this is what is so cool about random tables. I rolled that randomly. You saw it in the last episode. I just rolled it. It said engineer. It was the first one that came up. And so I took it. So rolling randomly just opens up tons of possibilities that we couldn't have even dreamed of. Even him meeting spacers. He could have met a zombie or a trapper, but I rolled spacer, which is just awesome. Okay. So now we need to get a move on and get through this thing as quickly as we can, because there is a time crunch. Even though the ship now won't explode, something is going on back at Lodestar. If we can recall, there was a ship headed there, an enemy faction headed to Lodestar. He needs to get this done and get back. So what happens is Hawking talks to Hellhound, and he says, Hellhound, I need to remove this creature or being either from the cylinder or with the cylinder and return it to my vessel. Can you help me? And she looks at it and is like, sure, I think so. So Hawking approaches the cylinder. He has to kind of clamber up to it because, remember, the ship is on its side. So the cylinder is now parallel to the ground, perpendicular from the wall of the ship. And so he clambers up there and he's looking at this brain in a jar. Hawking Duval is a diplomat. He leads with his heart, and he looks at the creature in the jar and he asks a question. Are you alive? Now, what are the odds that the creature can speak to Hawking? That is interesting. I think, let's see. Let's go back over here. Let's make some odds. Let's say 25% it speaks to Hawking and he can understand it. 26 to 50, it will speak, but it'll be in the ancient language. And 51 to 100, it doesn't speak. Okay, the creature does not speak back to Hawking. So Hawking asks Hellhound to see how they can disconnect this cylinder. And I might make it a little bit smaller so that they can carry it. So Hellhound, she is an engineer, although this is ancient technology. She looks at it and she is going to see how it can be removed. Now, I could make a move here, but I don't think so. I am going to look at aid ally and just see what that means. I know technically she's not an ally, I guess, because she's not another player character, but I'm going to see. Maybe I can secure an advantage and give her an advantage. Let's look at what secure advantage means. I can use wits and see what happens. Or if I'm not requiring her to make a move, I don't know. I think I'm going to scrap that. We kind of need to move along here and get some of these things done. So what I'm going to say in fiction is that Hellhound, she comes up next to Hawking and they're looking at this cylinder and she realizes that there is a way to detach it and the cylinder has its own power source. So she figures out how to detach it and she is going to take it and, like I said, I think I'm going to make it a little bit smaller so she can take it with some straps and put it on her back like a backpack. So Hellhound will have a backpack of a brain in a jar on her back. If you have seen the movie American Cyborg, kind of like that, the girl who carries the baby in her backpack in a cylinder. Not that any of you have seen American Cyborg, or not that I've watched it. No, actually, it's not bad. I mean, it's a bad movie, but it's not bad. So she's going to take that. So I'm just going to say we don't have to roll here for that because we're going to try to accomplish this objective. And Hawking has something else he has to do. We are still in the ship. He has to get that mineral sample for Ogre. So Hawking watches as Hellhound disconnects the top of the cylinder and she hooks it to her back. He helps her strap it on and he's like, thank you, Hellhound. I greatly appreciate this. And she's like, no problem. Just help me get out of this vessel. Understood. However, I need to get a mineral sample that's below this vessel. And Hellhound just looks at him and is like, we have got to get out of here now. And Hawking, listen, okay? I've sworn a vow. A young woman's life hangs in the balance. I have to get this mineral sample. I'm going to do a compel. I could do test relationship, but I don't have any marks on that bar, so it would be an automatic failure. So I'm going to do a compel. Let's see what that looks like. So he's rolling with heart. Ooh, no modifiers. Oh, is it a connection? Do I get a +1 because it's a connection? I think I do. A weak hit. Ugh, and look at that. I rolled a 10. There's nothing to do to save me on this one. All right, so weak hit as above, but comes with a demand or complication. Envision their counter offer. All right, what would their counter offer be? What would Hellhound's counter offer be? So I'm going to have to think about this. Actually, we can come over here to oracles, and I can look, maybe this is a good opportunity to use story complication or something like that. What do you think? Yeah, let's try that. Now what could she ask? Because she's already asked him to get her off the ship, but she's putting that on hold, so she's going to ask him something else. Now, let's see. Crucial equipment or device fails. No, that's not an ask. Needed item or resources unavailable. No, that would be horrifying. Something important goes missing. No, these are not it. So these are not it. Let's see if we can... Yeah, oh, there's Ask the Oracle. I didn't find it before. There it is. A story clue. Let's try a couple of those and see what that is. Connects to your own experience or interests. Suggests a looming event or a deadline. History. Involves a noble person. Connects to your... Getting the same thing over and over again. I could go to pay the price and... No, I don't know. Okay. I'm wasting time. Oh, I know. I can roll goal and see if she has a goal for me. Protect a secret. Okay. That's interesting. Let me roll... on some of these. So she's going to ask him to keep a secret. Deflect, technology, hidden message. I don't know how those would relate to the secret. Deflect, technology, hidden message, deflector technology, hidden message. Let's do a couple more. Tray, that one. Opportunity, pillage, outpost. Those didn't seem to help. Destroy. Okay. Reputation. Destroy reputation. Assured. Salvage. Okay, let's go back. Let's go back to compel, and I'm going to look at that again. Comes with a demand or a complication. So she was supposed to come here and destroy this technology. And she wants her reputation as a spacer protected because she's not going to do that. And Hawking Duval says, sure thing. Nobody will ever know. Okay. So we got that resolved, and it took us forever. We are going to have to make a new progress bar. Find the mineral sample. So I have that. We have to undertake expedition. Let's go over and check what that is. We are going to stay vigilant. So I'm going to use wits, and we are going to see what happens. Let's use wits. No modifiers. Strong hit. This is super good. We're going to imagine the location, and we get to mark progress. So I'm going to go back over here. I did not decide what this would be. I'm going to say it's dangerous. We're doing a lot of stuff that's formidable. So I'm going to say this is dangerous. But I already get to mark progress. So that is fantastic. So I'm going to imagine that to get down to the ground level, that there is just an access point along the wall that they've been walking on, because the wall is now the floor, that they are able just to go down into that, and they go into another section, and this just takes them closer to the ground level to where they're going to find this mineral. And Hellhound follows Hawking, and they walk down through this area. Now let's go back to oracles. We'll get a zone, a starship, research. So we're going to go down here. We can take a look at them if you like. Here they are. We haven't had a research area yet, to my knowledge. So we'll take a look at that there. Let's come back out. Actually, it's easier to roll if I just do this. So we're rolling for an area. Hazardous material storage. Sweet. Let's get a feature. Aquarium or tank. Oh, that is really cool. Man, I wish it was an aquarium. But Hawking and Hellhound go down through this into this new area of a research bay. And there are several large tanks that are filled with something. And it doesn't take a genius to figure out not to open these things. It looks ominous. So Hawking is fascinated by them, but he is also a bit repulsed because they look ominous. Now, Hawking would love to explore this waypoint. And that is something that we could do over here. We could explore the waypoint. However, Hawking now feels some urgency to move along. He's also made a vow to come back and survey this entire ship, so he's not worried about that because he's not going to forsake that vow. He's going to do it. It might be 5 years from now, but he will do it. So we're just going to go ahead and undertake expedition again and see if we can just get to this mineral sample and get out of here. But he is going to stay vigilant, so we're going to use wits. No pluses, I don't believe. Strong hit with a match. This is even better. So if we look at undertake expedition, so I get to mark progress. So we come over here, we mark progress, and it opens an opportunity for us. So let's come down here, back over to the oracles. Let's go to research. Let's look at this opportunity. Let's see what this is. Records of a notable discovery. All right, so as Hawking and Hellhound are making their way through this hazardous material storage with all these tanks, Hawking notices a bank of computers with some data storage devices there. And he has a backpack and he has some pockets. So he just takes a couple of those and he puts them in his pocket. And they contain records of a notable discovery. We'll figure out what that is later. All right. So he is just now going to move on, but he is staying vigilant. So we are going to undertake expedition again and see where they can go. And if they can find this mineral sample. Wits, no modifiers. Strong hit. Nice. So Hawking is kind of finding his groove on this. He's moving through the ship quickly. I'm just going to say this isn't in fiction. He's been emboldened because he's met Hellhound. This gives him some encouragement, and he is pressing on. And we are finding some cool stuff. So we get to mark progress. So there we go with that. And we'll roll the area. So they move out of the research area, possibly, and we'll look at a zone. Starship, living. Okay, so some living quarters area. I don't know what that new zone via access means. Unless they cut through a living quarters. Well, we could do that. They cut through a living quarters. We can roll a feature. Cherished personal item. I don't know. I don't know what that means. New zone via access. So like I could come over here to access and roll that. Okay, so they find a corridor after this research area, or some kind of living quarters near this research area, which is quite fascinating. And there was a cherished personal item there, I guess. But then they find a corridor and they're able to move on to a new location. So they're making good time here. What would that cherished personal item be? I don't know. I'm going to write it down and we'll see. Maybe Hawking slipped it into his pocket. I could roll on some of the tables in my book, The Great Book of Random Tables, Science Fiction, to see because I do have item tables. But let's wait on that right now. So yeah, we'll just say he grabs it, he slips it in his pocket, and we'll look at that later on. I don't know, he's kind of becoming a klepto, but hey, what are we going to do? So they made it to another zone. So let's see what this zone is. So Hawking and Hellhound come into this locker room, and there are just these little creatures all over the floor, and these vermin, they scatter across the floor as they enter. And Hawking is disgusted by them because he saw them before on the dead body of a spacer. And also Hellhound recoils because she knew that spacer. She was part of that group. So she had seen that sight as well. And they are repulsed by these little vermin creatures. But they're pressing on. Except Hawking Duval is curious. And he wants to explore this locker room. And I don't think he can help himself. So Hawking is going to explore this waypoint. I rolled a miss, but I can burn momentum to get a strong hit. Let's take a look at explore the waypoint and what it means. On a strong hit, okay, we would get something favorable and +2 momentum, or we could mark progress. I think it's and or. A weak hit, something interesting, but there's peril. A miss is chaos, so we're definitely not taking the miss. Let me see. Let me think about this. Okay, I am going to spend the momentum. So I spend that. That takes me down all the way. Then it resets it 2. Then should I mark progress or take this opportunity and then take 2 momentum. Or I could just gain progress. Man, I think I'm going to take an opportunity and then I'll take 2 momentum. So I'll make my momentum 4, come back over to oracles. And what is this? This is a living quarters or a locker room, but it's living in this area here. We'll go to opportunity and we'll see. Recorded message reveals something about the site. We've done that. Let's check for another opportunity. Culturally significant object or artifact. Might be the one we go for, but let's see. Let's see if we get another one. Intact barricade or protected area. That's interesting. I think I already know which one I'm going on, but let's see. Useful personal gear. That would be helpful, wouldn't it? But I don't think that makes any sense because this is an ancient ship, although, I mean, it would be nice to get some personal gear out of this. A favorable situation. Actually, you know, I might take that and I'm going to increase his supply to 4 and say they find some gear. So Hawking and Hellhound, they start opening lockers and they find some gear, some rappelling gear and rope and some different things like that. And whatever it is, we'll keep it abstract a little bit, but they find this and it's helpful. So we get a +1 on supply. This is useful personal gear. I like this, but it's also like a couple thousand years old. So it has a weird look to it. I kind of like that too. Hawking does as well. Okay. Well, we're going to go back and we're going to undertake expedition. So they're going to move on from this locker room. Still using wits, no modifiers. Strong hit with a match. Now this is what I'm talking about. None of those misses. All right. Misses with matches and chaos and all that stuff. This is nice. All right. So let's see what it says. So we mark progress, definitely. But the match is going to introduce either an opportunity or something else. So let's go ahead and go over here. Let's go ahead and mark progress. We're almost here, guys. We're almost here. All right. But let's go to oracles and see what kind of zone this is. Operations. Nice. So an area. New zone. I don't understand why it tells me that. So let's try again. Hissing comm channels. Now that is kind of cool. But what's the opportunity? Because I got a match. Key card or access code. Interesting, but let's try again. Just to see. Cache of weapons. Nice. Let's just see. Let's see. Secure area offers a moment of peace. No, we did that one already, didn't we? Let's just see. Key card. Yeah, there's only a few of them, right? I remember that. There's only a few of them. So let's think about this. I need something better for the match, but it was for undertake expedition. It wasn't for explore waypoint, so it's not make a discovery. Let me check make a discovery and see. All right, well, let's go over here and see what it says. Yeah, it's only the exploration of a waypoint that marks that. But the match has to do something, and it has to do something that's good. So there's these hissing comm channels, which is a fun idea. So they come into this room, and it's this operations room. I'm kind of imagining computers just all along the wall. And in fact, they're walking on computers because the wall is now the floor. So they come in and they're just walking on all these computer panels. They went from the floor to the ceiling, and now they're walking on them. They're looking at them, and there are these comm channels that are just hissing, Been like this for 1,000 years, 2,000 years, 3,000 years. Who even knows? Creates this eerie scene. But as they come in, I'm going to say since they've been pushing on so hard, they take a break. The match opens up the opportunity for them to develop their relationship. They sit down. Hellhound is sweaty, but she's wiry and strong. So I'm imagining this whipcord kind of woman, just like all muscle, very thin, but all muscle. And she sets down the brain in the jar that it is her burden now. She wipes some sweat away, and Hawking sits down next to her and they talk a bit. Nothing serious, but this room, even though there's this hissing of comm channels, safer than the vermin room. And they talk together, and they're going to develop their relationship here. And I don't remember how to do that. I don't think there's a roll. All right, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and mark progress. And what I just need to do is imagine a profound moment between them. So they sit down. Hellhound says, Jester, you said you were collecting this mineral sample because the life of a young woman hung in the balance. And back there, when Mole turned and became corrupted, you saved my life. What kind of person are you? Hawking smiles. Nothing special, really. Just a man on a mission. She looks down at these computers that are now on the floor and looks back and says, I've met people on missions before, and they don't usually take time out to save lives. Hawking looks back at her, looks in her eyes, and he says, well, I do. She shakes her head. What kind of man are you, Jester? Hawking Duval raises his eyebrows, remembers back to when Dancer said the same thing. What kind of man are you? He smiles and says, I'm not sure yet, honestly. And with that, they develop relationship. They shared a profound moment. Okay, well, let's get back to things here. They need to finish this expedition. So we are going to undertake expedition one more time, maybe. Going to use wits, no modifiers, a weak hit. Let's take a look at what that is. No. Can I spend momentum? No. 4 would make it a miss. So I can't do that. So what he is doing. Okay. Well, let me check. Well, I had enough to roll against it. Ah, dang it. I didn't really have to do that, but I did, so I'm going to take it. So what I'm going to say here is that when they leave this computer room or operations room with these hissing comms, after they've shared their moment, they move on. Let's see if they move through someplace here. Let's see what access could be. So they have a corridor. So there's a corridor that leads out. Let's see what kind of zone maybe they come to. Okay, engineering. This is starting to make some sense. Engine room or power core. We've already had that a little bit. Let me roll again just to see water processing. Actually, you see how random tables work? My instinct was to say water processing was dumb, but it might actually work. I'm going to check to see what a couple of the other locations are. Control room, see fuel, coolant tanks. Okay, so it's pretty standard stuff. Let me try one more time. Equipment storage. Okay, so here's what I'm imagining is that Hawking and Hellhound make their way down a corridor. They're going deeper into the ship. They're getting closer to the ground because Hawking needs access to the planet. He needs to find a mineral. So they're getting closer to the bottom, the side of the ship that is touching the planet Thule, deep, deep down into this big ravine, this big crash area that it made when it crashed eons ago. So he knows he's getting closer. So I didn't mark progress, so I am going to mark progress. So we filled the bar, and what I'm going to say is this. They have a peril now that they're going to have to face, right? Because that, let me double check. Yes. So we got progress, but we're going to have to make a suffer move, some type of suffer move. And then I rolled water processing. So I am going to say that they come into this room, and it was an ancient water processing area, and it is now flooded. So they come to the door. Now the corridor is on its side. So they come to the door. So the door is horizontal, not vertical. They come to this door, and they see below them this room that is just flooded with ancient water. And it is dark, and it is spooky, and it is cold, and something is holding this water in. But they need to drain this water out to get access outside the ship down below to reach the planet's surface. Now, how do they know that? I am not sure. So I'm going to picture this in fiction. So Hawking is standing there, and Hellhound is next to him. And they're looking down, and they can see where on the floor of the room where the water used to be processed and they can see on the ceiling where there were works and equipment. And now it is laying in this area along the wall. So they know that down beneath that, which is down further, there should be a door or a hatch or something that they can open, and the water will rush out and they should be able to reach the planet's surface. Hopefully this makes sense, because I don't know if it does. So Hawking is going to have to do something very, very dangerous. So we'll come over here, and here is face danger. Okay. This is for when you do something risky in the game. I haven't used this yet. I probably should have a couple times, and I'm sorry about that. I used it a lot in Season 1. We're going to see what Hawking needs to do. And what I'm going to say is that Hawking has to dive into that water, go all the way down, and open some type of hatch. Now, we've established that the atmosphere is bad, and so he has to have some kind of a breather on. So I'm not going to say he has scuba gear or anything like that, but the breather, if he puts the mask on and he has his goggles on, that'll protect his face. So he shouldn't really just like dive down here and drown. So he'll be rolling with edge, because this is speed or mobility or agility, so that he has to swim down. Well, I'm going to say, he has a headlamp. That's part of the equipment the game gives you. So he moves his headlamp over and he can see that hatch down there. He turns to Hellhound and says, all right, I need to open that hatch. I think that should lead out of the ship. We've come down so many decks. It has to be the end of the ship. And Hellhound is just like, you're going to swim down there with how cold it is here? And he's like, well, yeah, it's not frozen solid. The ship or something down there is keeping this a little bit warm. And she says, yeah, that's what's concerning. He's like, I know. Oh, actually, I did kind of forget about that this planet is cold. It's an ice planet. So what I'm going to say is there's chunks of ice in the water, which makes it even more dangerous. So it's very cold water. He's going to have to dive down in there. So he says to Hellhound, I'm going to dive down and open the hatch, and we should be able to get the mineral sample then. Hellhound responds, you're crazy. And he says, I know. So Hawking Duval strips off his parka. He leaves on his goggles and his breather mask. He leaves on his headlamp, but he strips off his parka. Anything that would restrict him. And he's going to roll with edge. And he dives headfirst into the water to make it down to that hatch. But first, he calls on Monarch. And Monarch, who's been silent for a while, says, yes, Hawking, I'll help you. So +2 for Monarch's help. We got a weak hit. We succeed, but not without cost. Make a -1 suffer move. All right, so here's how I'm imagining this. So Hawking swims down through this ice-cold water. 1,000-year-old water, perhaps? Who even knows? How old is water? Is water new? That's a profound question. I'm going to have to think about that one. Back to the game. Hawking dives down through this water. Ice chunks are hitting him. The cold is just pushing in on him. And he swims down. And he reaches this hatch down at the base of this ship. He's able to unlatch this lever, and the door opens. The water rushes past him, and he has to hang on to this hatch for dear life. And now Hawking hangs there by this hatch, soaking wet, freezing cold. And he takes a minus to health. He is now at 0 health. I don't know what that means. 0 spirit just meant if something else happens, he has to make a roll. I think that's with health too. And Hawking Duval is hanging by a hatchway door after being inundated with freezing cold water without his parka on. And he's soaking wet. Hellhound now races down into the place where the water was and rushes over to Hawking. She grabs him and she pulls him up. She has his parka and she wraps the parka around him, but he is shivering and he is cold, so cold. Hawking Duval has been pushed to the limit. Will he get the mineral sample? Will he even survive? And now we are going to see if we can finish this expedition. We have filled 10 bars. I hope we are able to get a strong hit on this. Let's see. Barely got a strong hit. One of them being a 9 over here, which is crazy. All right, so let's see here what happens. So we'll close this, finish an expedition. Let's look here. So we got a strong hit. I get 2 ticks on my Legacy's discovery track because it is dangerous. So let's see here. That's 1 tick, another tick. I'm going to check Lore Hunter just to make sure. Oh, okay, so it's formidable or greater. So I don't get anything there. I should have made it formidable. No, Hawking would be dead. So we have that. So I think we're all caught up. We have finished this expedition. So we can come over here, find mineral sample. I can just wipe this one away. Let's go check our vows. I think this is obviously a milestone. So we're going to mark progress there. So we have that. We've got to make sure Hawking survives to get back to the rover, then back to the Shard of the Sun, and then back to Lodestar. But first, I'm going to imagine the sequence here of him finding the mineral. So he opened the hatch, the water poured out. He's shivering. Hellhound came over, put the parka around him, told him he was crazy again, which he agrees. Then he looks out down through the hatch, and there is the rock exposed from deep inside of Thule. And he sees it pretty clearly that there are veins of different minerals in this rock underneath this massive ancient starship. So I am just going to say that he's able to climb down, and Hellhound helps him, and they are able to collect a sample, and maybe Ogre gave him kind of a collection box or something like that. He puts a sample in there, and he closes it up, and he puts it in his pack. So he has the mineral sample. However, we are going to end this session here. I think he could develop his relationship with Hellhound, and we already just did a milestone, but he'll take 1 momentum. We will develop the relationship with Hellhound, and we'll see if Hawking Duval can get out of this ancient starship and complete his mission.
Thank you for listening to Forged Among Stars.